I don't, like, again, I don't really have any expectations, man. Like, I've done and achieved so much and been and seen so many places, been up and down. Been when people think you up, you're really down. When you down, when people think you down, you actually really up. So that kind of doesn't matter at a certain point, who you trying to prove something to. But I'm just take things as they come at this point. You know, 15 years later, what else is there to do? Just kind of take it how it comes.
Holy assumption of man into the heaven sphere. Many mansions fit champions within its 7 tiers. Evangelists reimagine every 11 years. Pause for applause, evolves to what was never here.
A big thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. To get 70% off at $3.49 a month, plus 1 additional month free, click the link in my description to learn more. What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and I am back with a brand new episode of What Happened To. But before we get into that, be sure to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at QuakeGW. A link is in the description below for both. On the last video, we focused on Chief Keef, who was a Chicago native, and on this one, ironically, I'm focusing on another Chicago native rapper, and this one is from an older generation. As you can tell by the video title, I'm talking about Lupe Fiasco. What happened to Lupe Fiasco? And every time someone mentions Lupe Fiasco to me, I always think of underrated, super talented, and wrong generation. And here's what I mean by wrong generation. When Lupe Fiasco officially blew up in 2006, hip-hop was geared more towards gangster rap. And if you didn't have that image of being tough and being a gangsta in music, especially hip-hop at that time, you definitely weren't going to be really big. Things didn't really shift until Kanye West beat 50 Cent. Then Kanye made it a little bit cooler to be yourself, to be a conscious rapper, to rap about whatever you wanted. And then Lil Wayne came with his image, and then hip-hop became more accepting of different things. Despite that, Lupe Fiasco was a diamond in the rough. He still managed to make it big, despite having a lot of issues with his own label that he was signed to. And through that perseverance, he had a huge impact on hip-hop and its future generations. So let's go over Lupe Fiasco's career and what he's up to now. Get ready, because this is going to be a roller coaster ride. Lupe Fiasco has so many layers to him that are complex, but yet so easy to understand because his music is so direct in its message, which is very hard to pull off. I want to highlight a lot of those tracks as well, because he's simply one of the best. So let's get into it.
My name is
82 in Chicago, Illinois, and his parents divorced when he was just 5 years old. And his father, however, was still involved in his life, and because of that, Lupe Fiasco credits his father in having such a diverse taste in a lot of things, which reflects on his music today. In the 6th grade is when he started living with his father full-time, and he ended up moving to Harvey, Illinois. And because he started living with his father a lot more, this is when he started to explore a lot of different kind of music. But Lupe wasn't really interested in hip-hop. He was interested in all kinds of different genres, but hip-hop. He said the first album he ever bought that was hip-hop was Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt, and he bought it years after it came out. When he heard Nas's second album, It Was Written, that's when he started rapping his poems in the 8th grade. Fast forward to when he turned 18, that's when he began creating music as a solo artist in his dad's basement. And eventually he ended up joining a rap group called The Pack. And this rap group, just a year later, would end up signing to Epic Records. They ended up releasing one song called Armpits in the year 2000, and that's it. They ended up getting dropped and split up. And on that track, you can clearly tell Lupe Fiasco is the star. But Lupe did not like the content of his lyrics on that track because he was talking more about negative things, so he had to sit back and rebrand himself.
Yo, I pop shotting right for a little, drop nothing, unarmed, lights on them pistols, stop fronting while y'all chase birds like Roadrunner for phone numbers. I be in the back with bone crushers and known hustlers.
As the years went on, he ended up creating a demo, and on that demo there was a track called Could Have Been, and somehow this track and that demo ended up in the hands of someone over at MTV.
I could be hustling bags, struggling bad. If I wasn't up in the lab, shit, I just might be cutting your grass, walking your dog, pumping your gas, and nothing at all.
Through that, he ended up signing a solo deal at Arista Records, but then ended up getting dropped when the president and CEO, who was L.A. Reid at the time, got fired. But while he was there, he ended up meeting Jay-Z. And Jay-Z really took a liking to Lupe. He even said he sees Lupe as the younger version of himself and wanted to sign him, but he politely declined Jay-Z's offer because he wanted to create his own label, which would be called First and 15th Entertainment. Jay-Z, of course, respected that and helped Lupe get a deal with Atlantic Records in 2005.
You're one of few cats that actually initially turned down Jay-Z as he, threw a deal at you. Just as far as your people around the way, they say, what the hell are you thinking? What was that like, saying no to Jay-Z?
Well, we had the opportunity to build up our company or build up his some more, So me and my partner, Chili, we decided to build up our company, you know what I'm saying? And hopefully one day we'll be a Rockefeller ourselves. And now we're closer to that than ever. And it was easy. It wasn't that hard. It was just and he's still with the team, it's the executive producer. Everything that we got, that we could have got out of signing with Rockefeller and being with Jay, we got anyway,
Also in 2005, after getting his record deal, he ended up working with Kanye West on his second album, Late Registration. He appeared on the single Touch the Sky, and this would be his first introduction into the mainstream hip-hop world. And the song was huge, but ironically, Lupe Fiasco didn't even want to do the track with Kanye at that time.
I didn't even want to do Touch the Sky.
Really?
Nah, I didn't even want to do that.
Why didn't you want to do it?
Because that wasn't my piece. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm over here, I don't do that.
Lupe also decided to build up his buzz after signing to Atlantic by releasing his own solo mixtape for the first time ever in 2005 called Fahrenheit 115 Part 1, The Truth is Among Us. Then in 2006, Lupe Fiasco kept the mixtapes coming to build his buzz up. He dropped Part 2 of the Fahrenheit series called Revenge of the Nerds, and he dropped Part 3 of the Fahrenheit series called A Rhyming Ape. After that, Lupe Fiasco would begin promoting his official debut album. On April 18th, 2006, he dropped his first single called Kick Push. And it was definitely something different in hip-hop. Talking about skateboarding was something that I didn't hear at that time at all. The song ended up peaking at number 78 on the Billboard Hot 100. Then a couple months later, he dropped his second single called I Gotcha on August 8th, 2006, and the track was produced by Pharrell, who at that time was on fire, making beats for literally everyone in hip-hop. But this song underperformed and didn't even chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Following that, on September 11th, 2006, he dropped the third single from his album called Daydreamin, featuring soul singer Jill Scott. The song never charted on the Billboard Hot 100, which is insane because it's such a good track. If you haven't heard it, go ahead and check it out. But the good thing that did happen is Daydreamin won a Grammy for Best Urban/Alternative Performance. So Lupe Fiasco, off his debut album, won a Grammy, which is crazy. And the reason why it's so crazy is because this song didn't even chart on the Hot 100. So how do you win a Grammy off a song that's not even popular? Or the Grammys actually focusing on good music at that time? Maybe so. Nowadays, they definitely don't. Whatever wins usually is the hottest thing for that year. Following that, on September 9th, 2006, Lupe Fiasco dropped his debut album, Lupe Fiasco's Food and Liquor. The album debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200 and sold 81,000 copies within its first week. And as of January 2008, it went on to sell 325,000 copies in the United States. Now, this was 2008. I'm sure by now, 10 years, 12 years down the road, it's gone gold at least. And when it was released, it received great reviews. Every review is at least an 8 out of 10 or higher, and rightfully so because the album is amazing. I feel like this album was ahead of its time. If it got released in a different time era where conscious rap was more accepted, it'd definitely do a lot better in terms of sales. But the reviews were great. I personally think it's his second best album. My favorite tracks on the album are Pressure with Jay-Z, The Cool, Daydreamin, and American Terrorist. Plus, this album got nominated for 4 Grammys and obviously won 1 with the Daydreamin track. Then just a year later, in 2007, he started gearing up for his second album. While he was gearing up for that album in 2007, he faced a lot of dark moments. The first thing that happened is his father died of type 2 diabetes, then his friend died, and then his business partner and mentor got sentenced to 44 years in prison. So while he was going through this, he was recording his second album, and on September 25th, 2007, he released the first single called Superstar. And this single would become Lupe's biggest hit at that time. The song ended up peaking at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, which would be Lupe's first top 10 hit, and it ended up going platinum. Plus, to celebrate the success, he released an official remix featuring Jeezy and T.I. I suggest you go check that out as well, because not only is the original track good, but the remix is too. Lupe Fiasco also a couple weeks ago on Twitter revealed that he tried to get Eminem for the Superstar remix, but it didn't happen. That would have been really dope to hear Jeezy, T.I., Lupe Fiasco, and Eminem, and especially on that Superstar track. Following the huge success of the first single, the label and Lupe felt like they shouldn't release another single and just release the album. So Lupe's second album, The Cool, was released on December 18th, 2007. The album debuted at number 15 on the Billboard 200 and sold 143,000 copies within its first week. And as of now, the album has gone gold. And the reviews for this album were amazing. Most critics gave it 8 out of 10 or above, and it did better than his debut album. The album also got nominated for 4 Grammys, but it did not win a single one. However, for me, this is my favorite Lupe Fiasco album. My favorite tracks are Little Weapon, Dumb It Down, Hip Hop Saved My Life, Paris, Tokyo, and Superstar. If you really had to check out a Lupe Fiasco album and you haven't heard Lupe Fiasco, this is the album to check out. You'll really love it. After the success of these 2 albums, you would think Lupe Fiasco would continue dropping music, but instead he decided to do a long tour. So in all of 2008, he decided to tour, but while he was touring, he was working on his 3rd album, at that time titled We Are Lasers. In 2009, he was touring as well, but he had the album finished, and after 2 to 3 months, he would come home and submit the album to Atlantic Records, but they did not like the album and rejected it. So what did he do? He went back on tour, worked on the album again, came back, submitted it once again, but kept having problems with Atlantic Records. They did not like what he was producing. Lupe said that Atlantic Records was looking for more commercial hits because they were worried the album would flop if he didn't deliver that. So Lupe said they sent him a bunch of tracks with hooks on them that were commercial hits. He sent them back with his verses, and all of a sudden they didn't like those tracks. On top of having issues with his album getting approved, Atlantic Records wanted Lupe Fiasco to sign a 360 deal. And of course, Lupe Fiasco said, hell no, I'm not doing that, and just basically gave up with fighting with the record label to release his music. Since he didn't release an album in almost 2 years, he decided to feed the fans a free mixtape on November 26, 2009 called Enemy of the State, A Love Story. Also in 2009, there would be a track leaked that would be intended to be the first single off his upcoming album Lasers, but the track got no promotion from Atlantic because that's not the direction they wanted the album to go. The track was called Shining Down and was officially released on July 7th, 2009. Despite having no promotion at all, the song ended up peaking at number 93 on the Billboard Hot 100. Following this, in 2010, things would start to shift for Lupe Fiasco in a positive way. In January 2010, he released a new song called I'm Beamin', and many people speculated this would be the first single off his upcoming album Lasers. But once again, Atlantic Records did not like this track and wasn't liking the direction Lupe Fiasco was going, so they didn't promote it, and Lupe said that he put up his own money for the music video.
The record company sent me a song and said, this is Lupe, you need a #1 smash. And this is a #1 smash, right? They sent me the track and the hook. And they sent me 7 of those. The last one, when I was like, I'm done fighting, I'm gonna just Martin Luther King this one. Just go ahead. You know, I'm gonna turn the other cheek. It's so ridiculous that when I recorded the verses and sent the record back to them, they called me back and said that they didn't like their own hook anymore. So when I'm sitting saying, if you think my records are whack, which is what they told me, they think I'm whack. What? So if you tell me that my records are whack, then give me great records. So then you give me these records, I send these records back to you, you don't even like your own records. Where does that leave us? It leaves us in a stalemate. I was also told that because you didn't sign this 360 deal, we may or may not push your record. So when Shining Down came out and you didn't hear it on the radio station, it's because they never took it to a radio station. When Beamin' came out and you didn't really hear it on the radio station, it's because they never took it to the radio station in the first place. The reason that there's a video for Beamin' is because I shot it with my own money.
And as the months went on in 2010, of course, fans got upset that there was no Lupe Fiasco album coming out. So Lupe Fiasco voiced his opinion on Twitter and said, Atlantic Records is holding me hostage. So what did the fans do? They decided to create a petition online, and 30,000 fans ended up signing it. And if it wasn't for this happening, Lupe has said many times that he had given up making music. In a tweet, he actually said, I would have stopped making music after the Cool, but my OG Big U called me out the blue and said, as a Muslim and as a man, I had to fulfill my obligations that I signed my name to, no matter the cost. Basically, boss up and get through it and rebuild once you're out. After the petition and the 30,000 signatures, Lupe Fiasco's fans took it one step further and decided to protest in front of Atlantic Records. Lupe Fiasco heard of this and said he's going to join them, and the date that they set was October 15th, 2010, and when that day came, they were outside protesting for Lupe's new album. Then Leor Cohen, who was the CEO of Warner Music Group, which Atlantic Records is under, came out and decided to play the first single off the album.
So, thank you for the petition. First of all, 30,000 signatures.
And bam, just like that, a week later, the first single, which was called The Show Goes On, released on October 26th, 2010. And this track would end up becoming Lupe's biggest hit to date. It ended up peaking at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and went 3 times platinum. Even though this ended up becoming Lupe's biggest track to date, the funny thing about it is that Lupe didn't even choose this track as the first single, and he didn't even like the song. In an interview he did with Complex back in February 2011, he said, there's nothing really to tell about that record. To be honest, I didn't have nothing to do with that record. That was the label's record. That wasn't like I knew the producer or knew the writer or anything like that. That was one of those records the record company gave me. They even gave me stuff they wanted me to rap about. I had to do The Show Goes On. That was like the big chip on the table. I had to do it, and it had to be the first single if the record was going to come out. The thing that I don't understand when it comes to this whole story is why was Atlantic Records forcing Lupe Fiasco to do certain music when he did the Cool album, that was his own choice and it became a huge success. So if he had a huge successful album by doing what he wanted, why would the label force something on him like that? I'll never understand that. The same story happened to Chamillionaire when he had his issues with Universal. They were forcing him to do tracks he didn't want to do either, which makes no sense. If the artist succeeded by doing the music that he knows to do, why pressure him into doing something he doesn't want to do? After having huge success with the first single, they decided to push the second single, which was called Words I Never Said, and it was released on February 8th, 2011. The song ended up peaking at number 89 on the Billboard Hot 100. And it's one of my favorite Lupe Fiasco songs, regardless if it performed well on the charts. That doesn't matter. The history behind this track is really dope too. Lupe Fiasco says, Alex the Kid, who's the producer of the track, was trying to work with me for a couple of years, as far back as the Cool. He was submitting tracks and different things, and that was the one record that really caught my attention. The hook was already on it with Skylar. The first day I heard it, I went into the studio and recorded it. The song had a bridge we took out because initially the song was supposed to be about relationship, like a boyfriend/girlfriend Drake song or something. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to talk about world affairs. I've been talking about terrorism since back on Food and Liquor. So that's the great thing about Lupe Fiasco and why he's one of my favorite artists. When he hears something totally different than what an average artist would hear. The average artist would probably be like, yes, this is a perfect hook, a perfect pop smash, whatever. Lupe said, hell no, I don't want a pop smash. I want to talk about something that's actually important, and it sounded so good with Skylar Grey and Alex the Kid. We'll get back to Lupe Fiasco's career in just a moment, but first I want to tell you a little more about our awesome sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN is a virtual private network. That's what the VPN stands for. And it secures your internet traffic and encrypts it and routes it through a remote server to protect your data from anyone trying to view it. Without NordVPN, a hacker can track what you're doing, view your personal information, such as credit card details. With NordVPN, this information is encrypted and makes your data anonymous to protect you. This is why I always use NordVPN. I want my private information to remain private, especially my credit card details. And right now, NordVPN has a 70% off sale when you use the code Diverse Mentality. Plus, you'll receive 1 additional month for free. And this is my favorite thing about NordVPN. It allows you to watch and view content not available in your country on streaming platforms and websites such as Netflix. And the reason why I love this so much, this would have came clutch when I went to go visit my cousins in Germany, because they were literally blocked from watching any type of music videos over there. And through Nord's virtual private network, I could have pretended like I was still in the United States while watching stuff in Germany, so then the videos wouldn't have been blocked. Plus, in other locations, some people get shows that we don't get on Netflix, such as in the UK, they get Power on Netflix every single episode that comes out, and in America we don't. We have to get a separate Starz app just to get it, and NordVPN will solve that issue. It will act like you are in the UK when you are in America. And it has super fast servers over 5,560 different countries. It's compatible with most operating systems such as Windows, Mac OS, Linksys, iOS, and Android. NordVPN is backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't like the product. So save money and protect your information today. Click the link in the description to visit NordVPN and see for yourself why they are voted the best VPN of 2019. Then finally, Lupe Fiasco released his 3rd official album, Lasers, on March 7th, 2011. The album debuted at #1 for the first time ever in Lupe Fiasco's career, with first week sales of 204,000 copies, which was the highest first week sales he ever had in his career as well. And since the release, the album has gone gold. And the reviews for this album were very mixed. Some people hated it because it was way too pop sounding, and some people loved it because Lupe was trying something else and it was working for him. For me, I personally like it when artists do different things and don't get stuck in a box. Yeah, this album was a little too polished, but Lupe still managed to get his messages in these hit songs and throughout the whole album. My favorite tracks on this album are Break the Chain, The Show Goes On, Words I Never Said, and I'm Beaming. Personally, I think Break the Chain should have been a single. It would have done very well, and it's my favorite track on the album. Atlantic Records wanted to keep pushing tracks off this album, and on May 22nd, 2011, the Out of My Head track featuring Trey Songz got pushed by Atlantic Records to radio stations, and the song ended up peaking at number 40 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it his 3rd top 40 hit in the United States. In 2011, Lupe Fiasco fed his fans some more, and on November 24th, 2011, he dropped a new mixtape called Friend of the People, I Fight Evil. Then in 2012, he started gearing up to drop his 4th studio album. And on May 21st, 2012, he dropped the first single called Around My Way, Freedom Ain't Free. The song ended up debuting at number 76 on the Billboard Hot 100, which was a pretty good look. I love this track. Lupe flows on this track like water, and I love the sample on this track. That sample reminds me of NBA Street Volume 2. If you played that game and if you heard this track, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then just a month later, on June 25th, 2012, he dropped the 2nd single called Bitch Bad. This song unfortunately did not chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Then a week later, the 3rd single was pushed. It was called Go to Sleep. Now, I know I said this throughout the video that these certain tracks are my favorite Lupe tracks, but literally this track is my favorite Lupe track. I am not kidding you. If you haven't heard this track, please pause this video, go listen to that, and come back to this video because it's going to blow your mind. And what upsets me the most about this track is that it didn't receive any love. No music video was shot for the track. The track eventually ended up becoming a bonus track on Lupe's 4th album, which sucks. And the concept of this track is so dope. It's Lupe's conscious lyrical side telling his non-lyrical commercial side to basically go to sleep. And the whole beat, the flow, the hook, Everything about it is just perfect. If I was a billionaire, you know what I would do? I would take this track and force it on everyone's iPhones, like that bullshit U2 album that we got forced on our Apple devices years ago. That's what I would do with this track. I would force it down people's throats until everybody heard it, and I know for a fact everybody would love me for it. Following this, just a month later, he dropped 2 more singles. On August 14, 2012, he dropped the single Lamborghini Angels and ended up peaking at number 92 on the Billboard Hot 100. Then the final single for the album was released on August 28, 2012, and it was called Battle Scars, and it was a collab track with Lupe Fiasco and Guy Sebastian. The track ended up peaking at number 71 on the Billboard Hot 100 and ended up going platinum. Then finally, on September 25th, 2012, Lupe Fiasco dropped his 4th studio album, Food and Liquor 2, The Great American Rap Album Part 1. The album debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200 and sold nearly 90,000 copies within its first week, and as of now has sold nearly 130,000 copies in total. And the reception for this album was generally good. The average score is about 7 out of 10, and a lot of people were expecting it to sound like his debut album, Food and Liquor, which it kind of lived up to that. I actually really enjoyed the album, and the album was originally supposed to be a double disc album, so that would have meant a lot more tracks on it, but Atlantic Records did not allow it to happen. That's why there was a part 1, and a part 2 was eventually supposed to come out, but never ended up happening. And the cool thing about this album is that it's completely black. There is literally nothing on the album packaging. Black cover, black booklet, CD is black, everything on it is black, and the album credits are underneath the CD tray, which was something unique. Nobody in hip-hop had done this at the time that I was aware of.
The entire album is black. There's no pictures or words in the album. It was more to get like, can I get the label to do that? You know, can I make that happen? Can I say, hey, I don't want to put anything in the album and I want to make that happen? And it was like a challenge almost. And I had to go through some legal battles and some wrangling and back and forth. So it wasn't as easy as I thought to put nothing in there. This was like one of the hardest albums that I had to do, with putting nothing in.
Following this, in early 2013, Lupe Fiasco announced the name of his 5th studio album, and it would be called Tetsuo and Youth. However, no one knew at the time we wouldn't get this album till 2 years later down the road, because Lupe Fiasco ended up having issues with Atlantic Records once again. And just like last time, Atlantic Records wanted more hit pop records from Lupe Fiasco. And instead of fighting back like he did last time and giving up, he instead gave him the pop records, but once again, Atlantic Records did not like the tracks. Lupe Fiasco's first attempt for a single on the album was released on October 14th, 2013. The track was called Old School Love, and it featured Ed Sheeran. The song ended up peaking at number 93 on the Billboard Hot 100, but for some reason, Atlantic did not like this track. Then for a while, things were silent from Lupe Fiasco. In 2014, in August, he dropped a new single called Next to It featuring Ty Dolla $ign, and fans thought he was getting ready to drop the album finally, but once again, he kept having issues with Atlantic. Then in October 2014, Lupe Fiasco would break his silence and release some new music in the process. He released a new EP in October called Lost in the Atlantic Ocean. And in an Instagram post, he talked about why he was releasing this EP. He said, Atlantic Records won't release the album until they get a pop single. So putting together a mini project while they find one for me. It's called Lost in the Atlantic Ocean, with a bunch of my friends to stay active and happy. After 15 minutes of posting that on Instagram, the post got removed, and a lot of people speculated that Atlantic Records told Lupe Fiasco to remove it. Then the online activist group by the name of Anonymous threatened Atlantic Records in a tweet saying, if you do not comply, we will launch a direct attack against your website, your associates, and your executive. They gave Atlantic Records 24 hours to give Lupe Fiasco a release date for his new album, or they would have huge problems on their hands. And in less than 21 hours, they announced the new release date for Lupe's 5th album. And Anonymous was very happy that this happened. In a statement they released, they said, at this time, it can be concluded that we have proved our point. We wish music that is educating the masses to keep being released. We will fight for that. Lupe Fiasco, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Common, and others are the moving force behind conscious rap. This is the music we will fight for. So, since Lupe Fiasco got a release date officially, he decided to drop the first single off the album called Deliver on November 10th, 2014. This track did not chart, but man, it is a fucking dope track. One of my favorites from Lupe once again, and it has multiple meanings, so it's definitely a track that you want to read the lyrics to while you're listening to it. And that's just Lupe Fiasco in general. I wish I could explain each track that he's ever released, because this guy has so many layers to him that there's so much to talk about. This video ended up being like 3 weeks long if I talked about everything.
Oh man, anonymous. It all goes to, we always had the album in one shape or another, and since we never had like a release date, and it wasn't like no inklings to get a release date, you know, we really didn't feel like we needed to have a solid final piece, because we didn't know if it was ever going to come out. You know, I was like, it's not coming out, you know, and that's why we started to do the little Lost in Atlantic weekly, kind of drop a song every week. It's funny, the relationships and the people who support you in the shadows that you never knew about would just kind of come up and, you know, raise an iron hand, and, you know, and in less than 12 hours you get a release date and get a release from your record contract.
So just like Atlantic Records promised, on January 20th, 2015, Lupe Fiasco dropped his 5th studio album, Tetsuo and Youth. The album debuted at number 14 on the Billboard 200 and sold 42,000 copies within its first week. Although the album didn't perform well commercially, the reviews for the album were pretty much all great. It averaged 8 out of 10, which is more than you can ask for. And to me, it's one of Lupe's greatest albums. After 10 years of being in the game, essentially, he was still on top of it and sharp. I mean, the track Mural on this album is like 8 minutes long and has so many flows and so many layers to it that every time I listen to it, I hear something new and I pick up on something that I didn't hear last time. And that's always special. When you have an artist like that where you just don't get it automatically, you get how great it is, but you don't pick up on the small things after listening to it for a couple of times. That track Mural I really like. Fall, Winter, Chopper, Deliver. All these tracks are something you guys should listen to. Fun fact, when Lupe Fiasco's Tetsuo and Youth came out, me and my best friend actually went to go buy the album together. And when we tweeted Lupe Fiasco that we bought the album, he actually ended up retweeting us. So, Lupe Fiasco, if you ever watch this video,
what it do, baby? Yeah.
After releasing this album, it would seem that Lupe Fiasco is officially free from Atlantic Records and became an independent artist. So later in 2015, he released a new mixtape called Fahrenheit 230 on August 29th, 2015. Then in the end of 2015, Lupe Fiasco announced that he would release 3 final albums in 2016. One called Drogas Light, one called Drogas Wave, and the last album called Skulls. However, when 2016 came, he made it clear that he would not be releasing those albums because of clearance issues. Regardless of not having a release date in 2016 like he had planned, he ended up releasing the singles for his 6th studio album. And on July 20th, 2016, he dropped the first single, Pick Up the Phone. Then on November 17th, 2016, he dropped the second single, Made in the USA. And then finally on January 9th, 2017, he dropped the third single, Jump. None of these singles ended up charting at all, but that's because he's finally off Atlantic Records and doing things independently. So as you guys know, it's harder to get traction when you are independent and not having a label backing. But on February 10th, 2017, he dropped his 6th studio album, Drogas Light. The album debuted at number 28 on the Billboard 200 and ended up selling 19,702 copies in the first week. And the response to this album was pretty much just as bad as Lasers, if not worse. The average score was about 6 out of 10, and personally for me, this is my least favorite Lupe Fiasco album. Lupe Fiasco actually responded to the response to this album, heard that people didn't like it, and explained why it wasn't such a good album. He said that he wasn't officially released from Atlantic Records. He needed one more album, and he just gave him Drogas Light with a bunch of old-ass songs on it laying around that he didn't really initially want to release. So he just dropped that, gave it to Atlantic, got off the label 100% now, and that's why the album didn't live up to what people normally expect from Lupe.
Which was officially and unofficially my last album on a major label. So Drogas Light was like almost like a
a compilation of old ass songs that we had just kind of laying around. Because I made a promise to myself. Now listen, this is the first time I'm sharing this publicly, right? So around like lasers, I knew that there was gonna be some bullshit. So I was like, you know what? I will never, ever, ever, as long as I'm on this label, give this label like my heart, like what I really believe, like what I truly feel. Because I feel like, man, if you're working with somebody, you know, they have to like show you some love back and show that they deserve your work and your craft. So since Lasers, I've never really put my all into a project because I felt Atlantic didn't deserve the shit. Right? So I took an L. I knew y'all was gonna be like, man, if this nigga Lupe ain't going on hard and shit, this shit whack. I know.
Following that, in 2018, he dropped his 7th studio album. On September 21st, 2018, he dropped Droga's Wave. The album debuted at number 60 on the Billboard 200 with first week sales of 4,951 copies. And this album was way better than the last one. This album actually features 2 parts in it, 24 tracks in total, some being interludes, but you get the point. My favorite tracks are Drogas, which he raps in Spanish. He actually killed it. Manila, Wave Files, Stronger, XO, Stack That Cheese, King Nas, and Mural Jr. If you're listening to the album, listen to those tracks. Some of my favorite on there. Following that, in 2019, Lupe Fiasco did not release an album at all. He did, however, release a couple of tracks in 2019. In summer of 2019, Lupe Fiasco decided to travel to China to explore more of his martial arts passion. This is something that he grew up with thanks to his father. So in the summer, he was in China and managed to release a track called Air China. The song was released because he was working on a docu-series called Beaten Path for the past couple of years, and it explores his martial arts passion. There was a project released with a few Lupe Fiasco songs that never came out. This project was released thanks to Lupe Fiasco's business partner, Chill. The project is called Chill Spotlight, and it features 3 tracks that never came out from Lupe Fiasco. The project came out in November of 2019. Even though Lupe Fiasco himself didn't release it, it still featured tracks from him. Another thing Lupe Fiasco did in 2019 was appear on Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out show. He actually ended up killing it when it came to the freestyle battle. He appeared there in September of 2019. Also in December of 2019, just last month, Lupe Fiasco announced that he would be touring off his debut album, Food and Liquor, which means he would be performing that full album while on tour, and announced several dates for 2020. So that's what Lupe Fiasco has been up to. He's been relaxing on the music, enjoying martial arts, engaging with fans on social media. His Twitter account is very dope. If you're a fan of his, definitely follow him on Twitter. He responds to a lot of fans and even debates with them, whatever they want to debate about, and reveals dope things that we didn't know about his music career or what he had planned in the past. And speaking of music, he still has one album that he promised to deliver called Skulls. This album has no release date. There was a fan on Reddit that asked what the album is. Lupe Fiasco's official Reddit account responded. He said, "It's an album I've been writing for a few years. I've only recorded a couple songs of it. It definitely won't be dropping anytime in the near future, if at all. I haven't decided yet." So let's hope for 2020 he actually decides to release that album. Hopefully he doesn't retire either, because it seems like after these 3 albums that he announced, he wasn't going to make music anymore. At that time, that's what he was feeling like. I hope he's not feeling like that right now, because Lupe Fiasco is someone we need in hip-hop. And please support the music, because it's been a shame at how many dope tracks that Lupe Fiasco has released and they basically never charted, or people didn't really care about them. Like that track Go to Sleep. That's one of my favorite Lupe Fiasco tracks, if not my favorite completely, and that song didn't chart at all. It seems like it just came and went. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video too, I feel like Lupe Fiasco came out at the wrong time. He opened the gate for a lot of conscious rappers to do what they do now, like the Kendrick Lamar, the J. Cole's, artists like that. If he would have came out right now when conscious rap is actually a little more popular people actually want to hear that more, he would have done a lot better in terms of notoriety, sales, you know, publicity, all that stuff. And easily, because of streaming, if Lupe Fiasco would have came out right now, he would have been killing it and even would have probably had a couple of #1 hits. I know Lupe probably doesn't care about #1 hits, and his fans probably don't care about him being so commercial and big, because when Lasers came out, it did amazing, but it was way too commercial. I just want Lupe to get the respect that he deserves. There are a lot of rappers that just get slept on or forgotten about. So I hope this video encourages you to go check out his music more. If you're a hardcore fan, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a fan that just heard the commercial tracks, definitely check out his albums. He has a lot of great content on there. But yeah, that's it for this episode of What Happened To. Leave a comment below. I want to know what you guys think about Lupe Fiasco. What's your favorite album from him? What's your favorite song from him? How did you get introduced to him? So on and so forth. Leave your comments below. I'll be definitely reading them. Thank you for watching this episode. And if you want to support this channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/diverse mentality. For just $1 a month or more, you can help support this channel further. A link is in the description below. Like, comment, share, and definitely subscribe. I do videos like this daily on hip-hop news and much more, so definitely subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at QuakeGW. Like us on Facebook, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. To learn more, click the top link in this video's description to save money and protect your privacy today.